Now I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how to apply listening in the classroom. So, first of all, keep in mind that students' needs should always drive your curriculum. So always keep your students' needs in mind. So let's think about a couple examples. First, think about a student who wants to be accepted into a U.S. university. What kinds of listening activities would you bring in to help them get into a U.S. university? So think by yourself for a few minutes. So my suggestion here is one, the student will need a lot of communicative skills. They might have to go through an admissions interview. They will also need to be able to listen to peers talking in study groups and in the dormitory, but they will also need a lot of academic listening skills, especially if they're listening to lectures from professors. So you would need to balance both of those. So a question for you. What listening activities specifically would you bring into class to meet this goal? So think for a few minutes on your own and write down a few notes. You might want to pause the video while you do this. So my suggestions for what to bring into the class. One, maybe a mock lecture from a professor, maybe something from YouTube or an actual lecture taped from a professor's classroom. Number two, you might want to check for understanding when working with a peer because many students will need to work in group activities and study groups. Number three, practice listening to something nonfiction, perhaps a documentary or some other clip that you find that would help students listen for academic language. Number four, use strategies for clarification when a peer or professor is unclear. So for example, can you please repeat that phrase? Or I didn't catch that last thing you just said. Students will need to have some of these phrases as backups. Let's think of another example. A student wants to communicate with coworkers and clients in their job. So the student will primarily need a lot of communicative language, perhaps not so much of the academic language. So my question for you is, what specific activities would you bring into class to meet this student's needs? So pause the tape and write down a few notes that you could bring to the classroom. My suggestions, one, a mock dialogue that is recorded. So you could use a clip off of YouTube or perhaps from a movie of two people interacting. And what would be especially helpful is two people interacting in an office setting. Number two, use a similar dialogue from some other source that might not be from an office, but at least shows people interacting. Number three, have a written out dialogue that students can read to each other and practice. And finally, use similar strategies for clarification so that students know how to ask the partner to clarify in listening.